Hello, it's Dwyer, DwyerBoxingGame.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Today is August the 2nd, 2012. Let's talk about some news that I think you need to know about in boxing. First, Floyd Mayweather is scheduled to be released from prison tomorrow. When he gets out, he's going to find that the world has changed, particularly in his weight classes. Let's talk about it. Right, since Floyd's last fight, Manny Pacquiao has suffered a career setback. Right, Pacquiao lost to Timothy Bradley. Some of the allure that existed during Pacquiao's unbeaten streak the last few years has literally dissipated, right? Amir Khan, another possible Mayweather opponent, suffered a setback, right? Khan got decked by Danny Garcia at 140. Khan had been planning to gain weight to enter 147 after his unification match with Garcia. That now might be on hold. Khan's viability as a future Mayweather opponent has taken a hit. Another fighter who suffered a setback is Saul Alvarez, right? Because Saul Alvarez was scheduled to fight Victor Ortiz. And of course, Ortiz fought Mayweather, got stopped by Mayweather, controversial finish. Saul Alvarez against Ortiz would have been a huge fight. More importantly, it would have enabled us to see Alvarez against an opponent who Mayweather recently fought. You would have had a basis for comparison. Instead, he's going to fight Josecito Lopez, who has no experience at 154 pounds, right? Canelo is a big favorite in that fight. I would argue that some of the bloom is off the rose there. You're not going to have the kind of impact that you would have had with a Canelo-Victor Ortiz fight. And of course, Victor Ortiz suffered a setback, right? Not just with the loss, but also with the physical injury that required that he undergo surgery. He's just now figuring out how to use his new jaw, which apparently has a titanium implant in it, right? Let me point out too that while Mayweather was in prison, Robert the Ghost Guerrero got a share of the 147-pound belts, and so he's someone you need to look at. Also, and we'll get to this, Andre Berto actually has joined Mayweather's promotional group, right? 50 Cent's TMT Promotions, right? The money team. And so theoretically, if Mayweather wanted to make a fight with Berto, it would be easy to make because they now both have the same promoter, right? Mayweather, in a sense, is promoting Andre Berto's career. You need to keep an eye on that story. And of course, in the background, you have the story that's unfolding right now in the UK, where Ricky Hatton might be thinking of returning to the ring. Paulie Malignaggi has already offered Hatton 2 fights. As you may recall, Malignaggi, who has one of the belts at 147, lost to Ricky Hatton in about 2008. Malignaggi had a management team and a training team that he felt didn't really know how to fully utilize his skills, right? The fight itself was a competitive fight before Buddy McGirt. Then Malignaggi's trainer pulled the plug, right? Malignaggi, with his current group, believes that he has improved exponentially as a fighter. He's willing to fight Ricky Hatton. More importantly, if Malignaggi were to fight Ricky Hatton, and if Ricky Hatton were to repeat his prior victory over Malignaggi, let's remember that Ricky Hatton had a memorable matchup. It was a lucrative matchup. Good pay-per-view numbers, good live gate numbers against Floyd Mayweather, right? And of course, Mayweather has long talked about the possibility of actually fighting in the United Kingdom, right? Well, Mayweather's 35 now. If he's going to do it, he's going to have to do it soon. And I can't imagine a better opponent than Ricky Hatton. I know the Kell Brook people are cringing. I think Kell Brook needs a couple more fights before he hops in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, right? So keep an eye on Mayweather. He has a lot of roads that he can take, and of course, there's Miguel Cotto, who many feel gave Mayweather his best fight since the Castillo first fight many years ago, right? Cotto, as you could imagine, would like his belt back at 154 pounds. Keep in mind, Mayweather, despite not fighting that frequently, has belts, believe it or not, at 147 and 154. Also, in other news, you should know that Marcos Maidana has given up his belt, the WBA belt, at 140, and he's now moving up to 147. So there's a lot of action taking place at 147, right? Getting back to Andre Berto, you know, this is how a palace coup takes place, right? TMT Promotions is off to a very fast start. According to reports, they now have added Andre Berto and Zab Judah to their stable of fighters. And just understand what that means, right? I've mentioned it before. You know, Floyd Mayweather can now fill out a fight card. He and 50 Cent can fill out a fight card with A-level talent. Also, as I mentioned in an earlier video, you know, there's a renaissance going on in Brooklyn, New York City right now, right? The Nets in the NBA are moving to Brooklyn, right? Mikhail Poparov, one of the world's richest men, owns the Nets, and he wants to bring big-time athletic events to the new center that's opening in Brooklyn. Zab Judah is from New York City. He has a huge following in New York City. Keep in mind, too, that Andre Berto has a huge following in New York City, right? Many don't know it, but there is a very vibrant Haitian community in New York City. And Andre Berto is of Haitian descent, right? Keep an eye on TMT, because as I've said before, with Bob Arum and Don King getting a little long in the tooth, right? Both men are senior citizens. It looks to me that there is an opening for a new promotional outfit, and I believe that many elite fighters are looking at companies like Golden Boy, and they're saying, gee, Golden Boy has so many fighters. I want to sign with a different promoter who's going to have more time to satisfy my needs. And of course, boxers like nothing more than actually being watched when they fight. And TMT, with Floyd Mayweather, a big draw, who just drew 1.5 million pay-per-view views for his fight against Miguel Cotto, would provide these fighters with the kind of exposure that every fighter craves. Okay? So keep an eye on TMT as they fill out their roster. Reports indicate that they now have added Andre Berto and Zab Judah. Keep in mind, too, Zab Judah has to be the happiest man in the world. That Amir Khan, who he could never beat, because Khan just has too much foot speed and too much hand speed and too much length for him, right? That Amir Khan is thinking about leaving 140. That helps Judah tremendously, because keep in mind, not only is Khan leaving, but Marcos Maidana is leaving. And Judah already has a close win over Lucas Mathis, right? So keep an eye on Judah. His position has just gotten infinitely better at 140 now that Khan and Maidana are no longer fighting at the weight, right? Let me say too, if you're a fan of heavyweight boxing, you need to know about this fight that has just been signed and will be taking place September 29th. It is a heavyweight eliminator between Kubrat Pulev, 16-0, and Alexander Ustinov, 27-0. Right? This is a battle of unbeatens. Both of these guys have been lambasted in the past for not taking on elite competition. I think this fight is going to be a must-see. I'll make a video on it as we get closer to the fight if I have time. All right? Let me also say, too, if you like televised fights as much as I do, and I mean not fights where you have to go hunting down an internet feed or you have to deal with, premium channels. If you just like to turn on regular cable and see a great fight, you have one coming up 2 weeks from now. It's August the 17th. You want to circle that on your calendar. It's Friday Night Fights. It's the man who Emmanuel Stewart, his trainer, says is ready for anyone at super middleweight. And he is Adonis Stevenson. And understand, Stevenson is one of these guys who's willing to take on the big names, but the big names don't want to take him on, right? And he's actually fighting Donovan George, a huge puncher, right? 22-2-1 with 19 knockouts. So they're actually going to have this shootout in the super middleweight division. Here again, time permitting, I'll try to make a video as we get nearer to the fight. But this fight's going to take place on Friday Night Fights on ESPN the 17th of August. You need to watch this fight, right? Let me also point out, too, that we really don't know the future of the super middleweight division. Different players might be tied up doing different things. For example, if Andre Ward beats Chad Dawson in really, in terms of skill, a fight of the year candidate, then you have to ask yourself, does Andre Ward stay at 168 pounds? Or does he then start to campaign in the light heavyweight division? Keep in mind, if you're old school, you know, like Henry Armstrong in the back in the day, you can do both. If Andre Ward believes that his skills can pay the bills, can cash any check regardless of weight, what he might want to do is to stay at 168 weight-wise, but to take on guys at 175 pounds, right? And understand, light heavyweight has some personalities. Beibut Shumanov has a share of the title, right? Tavares Cloud has a share of the title. And of course, at super middle, Ward already has beaten Carl Froch, right? Ward already has beaten Arthur Abraham. Because of the Super 6 tournament, Ward already has beaten many of the guys at 168. Mikkel Kessler, right? But understand, there's a new group. Boxing always is new. There are always new fighters coming to the forefront. And of course, two of them are fighting against each other on the 17th of August. I understand Stevenson is 34 years old, but understand that Stevenson only has 19 fights, and he has one of the sport's best trainers, right? He has Vladimir Klitschko's trainer in Emmanuel Stewart. So it'll be interesting to see what Andre Ward does. Obviously, depending on what happens in Canada between Carl Froch and Lucien Boutte, that'll go a long way toward determining the next move either guy makes. My point is simply this. There's going to be a shakeout at 168 and 175. And we need to kind of like keep an eye on those two divisions. And of course, in the UK, you have a champion, Nathan Cleverly. There is the possibility that Andre Ward, if he wants to go after the light heavyweight division, and let's face it, boxers care about legacies, and Ward has a pretty strong case to make that he has already mastered 168, right? If Ward wants to go after belts at 175, a win over Chad Dawson, widely viewed as the best in the division, would open the door to fights against Cleverly, Shumanov, Cloud, Campillo, a whole new cast of characters, Jean Pascal, depending on how those fights play out. Let me add too that there's another fight that you need to know about, right? Robert Garcia's brother, Mikey Garcia, is going to fight Orlando Salido, right? This fight is an eye-opener. We'll talk about this fight as we get closer to it. I'd love to hear from the public on this fight. Give me your thoughts. I'll just say that this is an eye-opener. Let me just say that I personally consider Orlando Salido to be one of the hardest matchups in the sport. Let's remember, it was Salido who beat Robert Guerrero, but then got stripped of the win because of a failed drug test after the fight, right? Well, my point is simply, Salido's going to bring angles and volume to the party. And, you know, it's an open question on whether Mikey Garcia, who, you know, tries to be a boxer puncher, is unbeaten, but is also relatively untested. It's an open question on whether he's ever seen anything like this. Also, there's another fight taking place. You need to know about it. It's Gavin Reese against Richard Abril, who got robbed. That's the only word I can use. When he fought Brandon Rios. Now, Abril is intriguing. We're going to have to watch how that fight plays out, because Abril is actually a pretty good boxer. You know, I know his reputation, you know, he has some noteworthy knockouts. But when I look on film, he looks to me to be more of a boxer, and that's an interesting matchup. I'll do a video on that as we get closer to that fight as well. Okay, so a lot's happening in boxing. The King, Floyd Mayweather, gets out of jail tomorrow, and curiously, he seems to be holding even more cards now than he was when he went to prison because of the setbacks suffered by Manny Pacquiao and Amir Khan, as well as the setbacks suffered by Victor Ortiz. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at DwyerBoxingGame.com for outside the ring issues, and of course, Gamblers Advisory for picks and odds. Thanks for watching.